Please welcome Barry.
Hi, Barry.
Okay, I don't think I'm going to need this, but we'll try.
Do we?
For the recording.
Oh, right.
Okay, all right. Try feedback.
No.
No feedback.
No, it seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. The technical aspects are not your worry
Okay.
right this second. So, Barry, I started. I mentioned the book only in passing, and one thing. The thing about the book is it's full of the outrageous stories that we expect, and you tell very well, and we'll get to some of those. It's also a very moving book, perhaps even without your knowledge. I know Scott Rudin weighed in and said something similar, which is the first book was about getting to the top and what it was like and what it takes and how unpleasant it can often be, and some of the personalities that we deal with in showbiz. The second book is about staying there, and you write very honestly about successes and failures and what Hollywood does to you. And I want to get to that because it's quite personal, and the book is actually quite moving. Perhaps, as Rudin said, more so than you think it is.
I hope so. I mean, I hope it's... I didn't realize it was moving.
Well, it is because it's honest, and sincerity and honesty are hard to come by. And so it works for that reason. But let me get into some of the easier, juicy stuff first. This first question is very easy. You do a number of things in the book that you refer to that one doesn't wish to call you manipulative, but diabolically controlling might come to mind. There's a story about setting Angelica Houston a fake key light to get her to look where you actually want her to look. And there's another one about getting Ida Random, the famous production designer, to paint a set a color that he didn't want to paint. She didn't want to paint it. And I wonder, this ability to manipulate and control others, is that something you learned from your mother?
Yes, in fact, the other story is how I got the last $4.5 million from Lucy Fisher to finish the first Men in Black. Remember, we changed Edgar Bug to a CG Bug, and we didn't have that last shot where we pull back and we see that Earth is, a marble in a game, in an alien game, and the opening dragonfly sequence. None of that was in the movie, because the producer refused to ask Steven Spielberg, who was the other producer, to go to Sony and ask for that money. So I had to do it. So Lucy Fisher, who was the head of Sony, came into my camper, sat down and said, "What do you need?" I started to weep uncontrollably. My mother taught me strength through weakness. And then I put my weeping head on the chairman of Sony's lap. So Lucy is literally patting my head as I'm weeping into her area, and she says, "What do you need, honey?" And I said, "I need $4.5 million to finish the film." And she says, "Wow." But she also knows I got to get out of here. So she agrees to give me the $4.5 million. But so yes, strength to weakness has been very helpful. What I like to do, when I was a cinematographer early in my career, there were two unions, NABIT and then the big one, IA. And when I first moved to IA, and there were all these manly grips and electricians, and we'd be on a set, and we were going to shoot all these giant sets at night. Here's what I would do. I'd go to Rusty, the gaffer. I'd go, Rusty, what I'm thinking is, and Rusty would say, "Put a 10K over there, and we'll get a double net." Yeah. So if you just stutter enough, people will come and help you. I'm a big believer in strength to weakness, and yes, I learned everything from my mother, who had me page at Madison Square Garden, Barry Sonnenfeld, call your mother.
Hence the title of the first book. You don't need to read it to read the second one, but it's great.
That's very funny.
Well, do you think do you think that that's an essential quality for a film director? I mean, so much of film directing is about getting people to do what you want. I always say that the number one thing a film director says is, "Come on, it's going to be great." which you say a million times throughout the process.
Right.
I've seen in person and in the books, I've seen you be very direct with people and very honest, but these seem like situations that you approached sideways like a crab. Do you think, which do you think is preferable?
Well, you know, the most fun is just to say, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, Mel Brooks in his book, All About Mel, says whenever the studio would give him a note, he would say, absolutely, that's out, including the Springtime for Hitler, you know, song and dance. The producer said, I'm shutting us down today if that's in. And Mel said, just let me finish it, but it won't be in the show. And Mel said, they always forget. The studio always forgets. So, as you know, as a fellow director, you have to be a different person to different people. Some actors need you to sort of be firm with them. Some need more hugs. Some people need you to say, come on, it will be fun. Some people need to be lied to. But one thing I learned very...
Are they aware that that's what they need? Or but
yes.
deep down?
They don't know it, but I know they need to be lied to. But near the end of the book, one of the things that Will Smith and his producing partner, JL, taught me is in the old arrogant days when I thought I would never not be a successful director and would only fly in private jets.
In our defense, they make us that way.
Yeah, that's
and then they
right,
take
right.
joy in unmaking us.
Yes,
So,
they do.
But go on.
They do. In the old days, I would, you know, say, you know, I totally disagree with you, you know, when they would say something. But JL and Will taught me you always say yes, even when you mean no.
I laughed out loud at that part of the book because I've been doing a modified version of it for the last 10 years, which is I hear a note, I don't like it, I say, totally agree. I might approach it slightly differently.
That's right.
Which is the opposite of what you said.
That's right, but you don't say, what I would say to Amy is, Amy would say, you absolutely can't have that scene, and I would say, Amy Pascal is the chairman of Sony, who we both dealt with, and I would say, absolutely, Amy, I'm just going to say what you just said to me back to you, so we're in agreement. So what you want, and she would say, we don't want that scene. So what you want is you want that scene in there, but what you want it is in such a way, and I go on, and then she says, yes. And I go, okay, you've got it. And it's exactly the opposite of what she said. But in the old days, I would go, absolutely, I could not disagree with you more. And now she's already like that, and she can't agree with you. So that was what we've learned very late in our careers.
Yes,
yeah.
It would have made my 30s a lot easier.
Yeah.
This is not a great segue. Forgive. Okay.
Ow.
You spend some time talking about your sciatica in the book, which is how often it's tied to emotional or stressful circumstances going on around you, and I absolutely believe that mind-body connection is so important. What's since it has struck you from time to time, what was the most crippling bout on a set when 100 people are looking at you?
Right.
Money's flying out the door. When was the time it just really struck viciously?
I had sciatica on ADDAMS Family because of Scott Rudin. My quote about Scott Rudin is, I love him and I wish he were dead. And he's heard the quote. And then for years after that, I saw a back doctor that believes that all sciatica is brought on by stress and unconscious narcissistic rage. And you have to express your anger to get through the rage. In fact, I was able to cure your wife, Melissa, of sciatica one painful night when I made her weep uncontrollably. But
This was at dinner. It should be pointed out. But it was true, and it was effective, and you named...
Yes, and what I made her do is to yell at David and explain to her why she was in so much pain, because, anyway, it's a long story. But so then I used to yell at the crew, you know, and then one day on Men in Black, the first Men in Black in '97, the crew was supposed to have an elevator ready by 8 a.m., and it was noon, and they said they didn't need more time, and we were hours late, and Tommy Lee Jones is not someone...
A situation you tried to prevent numerous times by telling them to come in early. Let's test it
You
the day
could
before.
have
Nothing. It's
Oh.
all ignored, and then to everyone's
We
shock
don't
and
need to,
dismay,
boss.
it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
So now I am yelling at the crew in front of this group, in front of everyone. I told you to come in early. I told you whatever time you need. Sweetie pulls me aside and says, you know, Barry, they know they screwed up. They are embarrassed, and by you yelling at them, now they don't. Now you're taking the embarrassment off of them because now they get to be angry at you. So from '97 on, I have never yelled at anyone, and I have horrible sciatica. I mean, horrible. So here it is on Men in Black 3, which was a nightmare. We'll get into that, but we didn't have a script. We had a horrible manipulation.
Some of us tried.
I know. David was
there
hired
were obstacles
twice.
and fired twice.
And fired twice. And on Christmas Day, I had to tell the producer and his wife, because Sony was afraid to, that David Koepp was coming back on the movie, but only under the condition he never had to speak to the producers because David called them time vampires.
It had been I was on the first movie too, and we had not worked well
We've
together.
got several books we can write about the Men in Black series. So anyway, I say, and Walter, the producer, says, well, that's not acceptable. And I said, we need David, and it's the only way he's coming back. And Walter says to me, Barry, let's face it, the last 10 years of your life have been a personal and professional disaster. At which point I say, F you, Walter, because you'd think that the Sony executives who were on the call would say, oh,
Hey,
Walter.
now, hey, whoa, let's not,
Yeah, right.
no.
Nothing, silence. So I said, fuck you, Walter, hung up the phone, stood up, and it was the end of Dr. Strangelove. I said, mein Fuhrer, I can walk, and I had no sciatica. My sciatica, so get that rage out. Realize who you're secretly angry about. It could be your wife, your kid, your boss. You're so afraid of getting fired or ruining your marriage, and it could happen. But at least, but at least you'll be walking pain-free. And is that a better choice? I don't know. So
It's a very personal choice.
it's a personal choice, and I would not tell you what to do. I'm just, yeah.
Well, Men in Black brings up an interesting point. So the Men in Black movies, obviously massively successful. They changed. Get Shorty had already changed things for you in Hollywood,
Right.
but ain't nothing like $800 million coming in to make people love you. So the first Men in Black is a gigantic hit, critically, commercially, everything, and things change. The second, fraught, I know,
Fraught.
and the third, certainly fraught, but an even bigger hit, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
The pain and pressure of doing those three movies. I was struck by the symmetry of, you did 3 seasons of Series of Unfortunate Events.
All a pleasure.
Right. So 3 movies, giant hits, cultural influence, money, an ability to choose.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 seasons of the TV show, a creative delight. Which one do you want to take again?
Oh, I would take the 3 seasons of A Series of Unfortunate Events because it was one of the rare times where personally and professionally everything came together. You know, the Men in Black movies were huge hits, but they were so painful to make. There was never weekends where you would think, this is great. On A Series of Unfortunate Events, we'd have big parties with crew and with the cast, and we loved Vancouver, and I felt creatively. Here's the difference. Netflix, and this was early on in Netflix doing their own material. Netflix, I sent them the rough cuts of the first 2 episodes, and they sent me some notes. And I called my executive and I said, so listen, do you want me to do all those notes, even the ones I think won't work, or even the ones I don't like, but you want them, or how many of the notes should I do, or all of them, even though I don't? And the head of Netflix said, Barry, these are suggestions. It's your show. You can ignore every suggestion we give you. Have you ever heard that?
No.
No.
No, I have not.
And they meant it.
Contrast for a moment the
Amy?
Amy in the edit room on Men in Black talking about which angle of something.
Right. And then you got to Men in Black 3, where again, I was, it was as if I hadn't directed the first 2 Men in Black and didn't.
Or really anything.
Or anything, you're right. And like, we didn't, David and I really created the tone of that series. And I want to get into what David's brilliant contribution to that was. But on the third movie, literally, Amy Pascal, the chairman of Sony, is coming into the cutting room and saying, you know, I'd rather be on a close-up here instead of the over-the-shoulder. And I'm saying, yes, but then you see the action of Tommy's shoulder reacting to what Tom's saying, and no, I think a close-up. You know, Will cries at the end when he realizes who Tommy Lee Jones really, that character really is in his life. She says, heroes shouldn't cry. Take out the, you know, and so that was a level. I was a director for hire as if I had nothing to do with the series. And that, you compare that to Netflix, who is amazing.
So why come back? I mean, I know why, and I know how it happens, and it's happened to me.
Yeah.
But why keep doing them?
I didn't come back on Men in Black 4, and that was a total disaster.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, you know. And in addition, F. Gary Gray, who directed Men in Black 4, also directed the sequel to Get Shorty, called Be Cool. So I feel that F. Gary Gray is my sort of sequel guy when I know something's going to fail.
He's a closer. He's your closer.
Yeah, he's a closer. Well, you know, there's money, and also I hadn't worked in many years, and I loved Will and Tommy, you know.
Those relationships never seemed to be a problem. And those are the people you're with all day, every day. Yeah. And I'm sorry, who shot them? Or did it change? It was Bill Pope on the third one, I know.
Pope was the third one. Fred shot RV for us, and Fred
Murphy, the fine
back
cinematographer
there.
in the back of the room.
And Robin Williams used to, on the set of RV, sell fake DP dolls. Like you go, here's an Alan Davio doll. He's slow, he doesn't drive, but boy, his images look beautiful. What did he say about you, Fred? You remember? Okay, Fred's a laugh riot.
So the core, but the core relationships, you know,
Will and Tommy,
and the production designer and Will and Tommy and the DP. Those are the people you're working with full time, all time, every day. And then there's all the noise. So you're saying on the TV show you had both.
I love the cast, I love the crew, and I love the studio, and I love that I was in charge of everything.
Which what's not to like?
Yeah, only child, Jewish. What could be better?
So you told me when you sent me the book, I burn a lot of bridges in this book.
Yes, I do.
Which is the most? But there obviously you don't burn bridges that you intend to cross over again. So
there's no bridges I'm ever getting back on.
Which is the most significant that you feel is torched?
Well, for a friend of mine said the only time. I burn bridges before I get to them, is what she said. That's not funny, but she said the only time I'm not acting juvenile is when I'm acting senile. But anyway, I burn, to a certain extent, I burn my bridge with Will Smith. I definitely burn a Travolta bridge. I definitely burn Walter Parks, the producer, bridge, but I wouldn't want to go near him, and nor would he want to go near me. But I burn a bunch of bridges, but I'm not mean. I'm just truthful.
No, it isn't mean, and I don't think it's unfair. It's far worse than that. It's just what happened,
right?
And the way that you tell some of these stories in an uninflected manner, it gives them even more validity. The Travolta difficulties on Get Shorty are just straight. You don't put any particular spin on it. The man didn't know his lines. The man tried ever. Right. And didn't really know what he was doing, and forced a lot of creative decisions to be made later. Right. That's just straight. But it is, in Hollywood, the greatest crime of all. We don't tell the truth. Right. I'm not sure why you would think you should do that.
Luckily, I'm 71, and I'm trying to transition to a career in writing, perhaps. I talk about Forrest Gump, which was a project that I developed, and I got Hanks to be in it. And Paramount was so mean on that movie, but you see, all those guys, when they win Academy Awards, are up there on the stage thanking Sherry Lansing and Paramount for all their work. They were nightmares. They got that movie done in spite of the studio, not because of it, but they all keep the secret. Yeah. And they all thank their cast, and they all thank their, directors and all that, and it's all not true.
Yeah. I think also I think though that you're telling the truth. It's okay. It's kind of irritating, but it's true. I think in Hollywood there are only two things that are absolutely unforgivable, and I think you know what both of them are. Number one, of course, is losing money.
Right.
That we just absolutely do not forgive.
Right.
Number two is an actress turning 40. That is the other one, completely unforgivable, but it's really a corollary of number one. So it all comes back to, did you lose money?
Right.
And those are the only things. But you felt, and this is the part of the book that I found moving. You feel that, at Hollywood, as it will, because no one stays on top forever, started to give you the cold shoulder. How do they do that? How do they get the message across to you that they don't feel the same? I have my own theories, but they don't feel about you the way they did when you made $1 billion.
Oh, they'll constantly they won't send you material, or they'll hear their material and say, we're going to pass on this, but nothing personal. And then I always say, it should be personal. I've made $2 billion for your studio in spite of you guys not helping me at all make those $2 billion. So why don't you just let me, remember how Clint Eastwood couldn't get Mystic River made or something? And the Coen brothers, after No Country for Old Men, wanted to do True Grit. And Spielberg controlled the rights to True Grit. And said, no, that's a classic. We shouldn't remake True Grit. And Scott Rudin heard and said, schmuck, come to me, don't go to Spielberg. Said to Paramount, the guy just won you 6 Academy Awards. It cost $12 million and made $200 million worldwide. Let him make True Grit for...
That was No Country for Old Men.
Oh, No Country made all this money. Won the Academy Awards. Let him make True Grit for $12 million. So Scott forced them against their will to make True Grit. And same with Clint. He's made Warner Brothers billions of dollars, but he still has to fight to get movies made.
So it's just a general, it becomes harder. Everything becomes harder, and there's a general quieting. It's like the Woody Allen line, it's Hollywood's worse than dog eat dog. It's dog doesn't return other dogs' phone calls. I want to leave some time for Q&As. We have a little more time. Okay. But I will let you tell us what's next. Another book, a show, a bunch of things in the fire. But
there's nothing next.
Great. Any?
I got to tell you, I don't want. I so fear 20 years sitting in an Eames chair looking out the window. And I don't want to do that. So if you got any idea, anyone has any ideas?
It's now a Q&A, and pitches are welcome. So there's someone. Yes.
I'm curious. Is the fight because execs generally have shitty taste? Is it because they're worried about losing their job? Is it what's?
They're insecure. And the difference between Netflix and a movie studio is Netflix produces so much stuff. Some of it can be good, some of it can be bad. No one's paying it. The stock market isn't paying attention on a given week to what shows they release on Tuesdays. Studios now produce 12 movies a year. So every Friday night that they open one of those movies, if it's not a huge hit, they think they're going to lose their jobs, so they don't want to take chances. They only want to make movies based on IPs, and even the streamers, you say, yeah, but the Bear wasn't an IP. You tell them all the things that weren't IP.
That's a one-off. That's a one-off.
That
Every
doesn't count.
single one is a one-off.
That's right.
It's fear. People who are scared are hard to work with. I always think that the most successful directors are the easiest to work with. I mean, they can be domineering, they can get way up in your shit, they can be really, really hard to be around personally.
You mean studio executives?
No, I mean directors.
Directors.
That joke wasn't working,
right,
but I was trying to, you'll polish it and do it back. But they're easy to work with because they're confident and they're clear about what they want. And studio executives aren't confident and aren't clear about what they want, and they tend to And that shows, changing an over-the-shoulder shot to a close-up will have zero effect on the financial success of this movie. But
Right. The other part of that is when you are self-confident as a director, you want to hire crew members better than you. You want to get the best DP, the best production designer. I worked with Bo Welch a lot. A lot of directors, because they're insecure, they think that they need to control everything by hiring people that aren't as good, and sometimes that shows in their movies as well.
it's true, yes.
So you've had so much resistance and difficulties dealing with studios, you've had so much great success, so how come you haven't taken that money and maybe start your own production company so that you can change?
I have no money. I have 3 daughters.
I'm not talking about I have 2, I feel your pain. No, but I mean, you could find the money outside with all the...
I'm 71. No one's going to give me any money to do anything. But thank you. You're adorable to think that.
At the beginning of your speech, it seemed that actors were very malleable, except for Tommy Lee Jones, maybe. Are there any actors that you haven't burned bridges with that you would really?
Oh no, I haven't. The only bridges I burnt are when they read this book. But I've never burnt bridges with actors. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones. He hated me on the first Men in Black because he thought he had to be funny. He didn't realize that comedy plays out in comedy duos. You need Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. You need Abbott and Costello. He was trying to be Jerry Lewis. And we had Will Smith playing Jerry Lewis. So I would...
I remember the dailies on the shot that you might be about to talk about. It was one of his first shots in the movie.
That's right. Very first day working with him, Tommy Lee Jones has to say to this alien who's speaking in an alien language, and he's got flippers and all that. But so obviously Tommy understands this alien language, and the first line, probably written by you, is, "That's enough, Mikey. Put up your hands and all your flippers." But Tommy Lee Jones, think he's in a comedy, first day of shooting, goes, "That's enough, Mikey. Put up your hands. And all your flippers." Cut. Hey, Tommy, it's going to be funnier if you don't acknowledge that putting up flippers is funny. For you, it's just another day at work. And for 20 weeks, he hated me. His manager, his agent would call and say, "You don't want Tommy to be funny." And I kept telling him, wait till you see the end of the movie. He'll be as funny. And to finish the story, we have the junket, which means Tommy has to finally see the movie. He sees himself in this movie. All these reporters say, "How did you become so funny?" And Tommy Lee Jones, God love him, says, "The secret to being funny is stand next to Will Smith and do whatever Barry Sonnenfeld tells you to." Listen, the whole time we were doing the first Men in Black, I told Will, you're going to see this movie when it's over, and you're going to think you're funny, but I'm funny. You're just doing what I'm telling you. And Will, God love him, Will said, "Absolutely, Baz, I get it." Because so much of directing is about tone. And
Oh, God,
yeah.
Yeah, and that tone on those movies is really particular and easy to screw up. It's that convincing someone to be deadpan, convincing someone to do less. I think you actually have great relationships with actors.
Yeah.
There's only a couple things you mentioned in the book. Some people might rather you didn't, but you're for the most part very straight with them and just saying, "Cut, we got to do it faster," which is your favorite direction. Very directly and saying it'll be funnier if you play it straight. You're not trying to perform it for him. You're just telling him what this needs.
By the way, here's the great thing about David. David is the only writer who can do this. There is a genre of films called action-adventure comedies. The truth is, the action always screws up the comedy. The comedy always screws up the action. I watched Bad Boys 4 recently on the plane. Lots of great action, lots of, set pieces with explosions and all that. But every time Martin Lawrence stops to eat some Kittles, you've taken away the reality of the action, because if he really can stop or if you've got a really comedic scene and suddenly someone gets shot in the head, you can't laugh anymore. And what David does, unlike anyone, is he actually can write action and comedy and not stop and not let either one interfere with the other. And it's really an oxymoron, and you pull it off.
That's very nice and reminds me, you should have shot the invisible car thing in Men in Black 3.
know,
That was
I
a
know.
very funny idea.
It was hilarious.
Because they had you have to have a comic idea for your action thing. What's the funny thing that somebody's going to say that makes sense in the situation? The idea was the Men in Black have this car and they can push a button and it becomes invisible and they race through traffic. But it really just means other cars are more likely to hit them and no one knows they're coming. And Will Smith's character had 4 or 5 lines throughout where he's screaming, "Who thought this was a good idea?"
Right. It was a great scene, and again, Walter and Laurie and Sony said, "No, it's too funny." I said, "It's too funny, but it's real because it's a real Men in Black thing, and it's moving the plot forward." But good luck.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, with Pushing Daisies, which was, I think, kind of ahead of its time, and it didn't catch on the way that it now has become more of a cult classic. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I love the script for Pushing Daisies. I knew whoever got to direct that would win the Emmy. Thank you. By the way, my Emmy speech was "Love television, fear the internet," and that was in 2007, so I was very ahead of my time. Again, it was about manipulating the studio. No studio had ever let you shoot more than 18 days. I needed 19 days. I said to the head of the studio, Peter Roth, "It's going to be 19 days one way or the other. But if you let me have 19 days now, we can do 19 days properly. If you insist on 18, every day won't achieve what it could, and we'll still go a day over." I was very honest with him, and he said, "We've never done 19 days, but okay." Now, the truth is I'm very prepared, and I so showed him all the shots and all that, so he knew I was, prepared for that. But the head of the studio was the head of ABC was a guy named Steve McPherson, who was everyone hated him, and I loved him. Because here's what you want from a studio executive. When you show him something or make a suggestion, you want him to say, "No, I hate that." What you don't want them to say is, "Can you give me the weekend to think about it?" Because that means no, but now you got to wait 3 days to hear the no. Just say no now, and then I love it. Okay, I'll come back with something else. So you have to show ABC a tone book, wardrobe and sets and, images of what you're going to build and the cars you're going to use. And I knew our wardrobe wasn't ready. And if you show a studio bad wardrobe, all they think about for the whole rest of the show is the wardrobe. They'll
Especially
look
on
at
an actress, where they
Right.
obsess.
They'll say, "Is she fat? Are those the right shoes?" So I thought our wardrobe wasn't ready when we were going to show the tone book. So I said, "We're just not going to put the wardrobe in there." And the other producer said, "Oh no, Steve is going to go crazy." So I show him the tone book. He's loving the images of the sets we're going to design and this and that and the cars and locations. And he says, "All right, where's the effing wardrobe?" And I go, and all the producers said, "He's going to go crazy." He said, "Where's the effing wardrobe?" And I said, "We're not ready to show you, Steve." And he went, "Okay." But if we had showed it to him, the whole rest of the movie, we would be getting notes about Anna Friel's, heels. And
Yeah. Well, again, it's being straight. You were straight with people, and that
yeah,
paid
tell
off.
the truth.
Except there
Yeah.
are times when the truth doesn't work.
Oh, yeah,
if
except when it doesn't work.
Could I ask it, because most people won't have read the book yet. There's a story near the beginning. I don't think I'm ruining any ending or anything. Angelica Houston won't look where she needs to. Would you mind telling us that? I loved this.
Okay, so, and first of all, I got a call from her agent saying that Angelica needs a key light clause. And I go, "A key light clause?" "Yeah, she wants it in her contract that she has a key light." And I said, "Well, the definition of a key light is just the brightest light in the frame. So every shot has a key light. She says, Angelica's very worried, Barry. She's got to be beautiful. I said, I know, I'll make her beautiful. And we're shooting this one day, and Angelica's in a bad mood because Owen Roizman has left the movie, and he did a beautiful job. Then the second DP,
the guy who was lighting her.
Right. Then the second DP has a sinus infection. So Bill Pope, who was the second unit DP, is now shooting that day. And Angelica hadn't seen him, and now she's really worried. And I need her to look here. And we're rehearsing, and Angelica won't look there. And that's where I need her to look. So I say to Bill, and I had heard this story previously from another director who did the same thing with an actor. So I said, Bill, get the biggest light from the truck, put it exactly where we need it, put enough nets in front of it so it's glowing but isn't actually lighting the set, and she'll look there because she'll think that's her key light. So, and, adjust it, move it around, take some, meter readings.
Really fuss over this.
Fuss over it, look. Tell him to add a double, remove the double. So Bill did that. The light was doing nothing. It wasn't not even reaching the camera.
So it's a giant 10K with 8 filters in front of it.
Exactly. So it's just like a glowing orb. And God love her, Angelica looked exactly where I needed to. So that's what you learn. You could have said, Angelica, just look there. But that's going to ruin your whole day. She's going to cry, and then there's 2 hours back in makeup. So, so that's the kind of stuff you'll learn. If you buy the book, that's the stuff you'll learn about becoming a director. It's becoming a parent. Some kids need you to hug them. Some need you to be a little stricter. Some need you to not be anywhere near them. Some just need you to give them a lot of money.
We probably have time for one more. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as you started off, were you really stuck in self-comparison, and how do you work through the, self-comparison to other projects, other people, and how do you work through it?
Comparing yourself to something you did before and saying, "Oh, it'll never be that good," or comparing yourself to other people who do what you do but better.
Well, you're always, every time you look at some person who directed something, I look at commercials for vaginal creams, and I'll say, why didn't they call me to direct that? I mean, I can't, Sweetie all day long says that commercial costs less than it would cost them to fly you from Vancouver to Los Angeles. You're constantly comparing yourself to, Mike Nichols says that he has two things. One is that in LA there's an ether that just goes under your door and invades everything, and you're always comparing yourself to everyone else. And then my favorite Mike Nichols quote is, not only do I have to succeed, but my friends have to fail, which is kind of a brilliant and truthful LA kind of quote.
Those voices are in your head constantly. And you have to tune them out. They're not helpful. It's not helping you.
Oh,
so you gotta.
They're not helpful?
I based my entire career on listening to those voices. I don't think so. I think they slow you down, and you just have to plow on. It's not. You just have to plow on. Last one. Yes.
So who are your cinematic heroes?
For me, it's a guy named Gordon Willis. The Woody Allen producer says Gordon Willis lights for radio. He shot The Godfather and a lot of Woody Allen movies, and also The Conversation. Did he shoot The Conversation? Well, he shot the Godfather movies.
All the President's Men.
All the President's Men.
No,
He's the best. And after he died, a reporter who was interviewing me told me that his favorite DP was me. And we have such opposite styles. I'm a wacky, wide-angle, move the camera guy, and he's a very all about the lighting kind of guy. But that thrilled and delighted me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be like hearing that David Sedaris liked my book or something like that. Just saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, Barry, thank you so much.
Oh,
That
Dave,
was a delight.
thank you. What a pleasure.